How's it going, everybody? Today I am going to be doing my final year-end list video for 2020, which, as usual, is a list of my favorite albums of the year. Before I get into the list itself, I'm just going to go through my usual formalities here. First off, I'm just going to go through my 5 favorite EPs of the year. At number 5, I have Radicalized / Breathe by Russolo Collective. Number 4, Extra Glow by Chief Keef. Number 3, Flint / Emeraldize / Starfish / Everlaster by Vale Smith. At number 2, Lulu by Conway the Machine. And at number 1, The World is Lucky's by Lucky. Now for some honorable mentions that were in contention for the albums list but didn't quite make the cut. Real Bad Boldy by Boldy James, Visions of Bodies Being Burned by Clipping, Burden of Proof by Benny the Butcher, My Agenda by Dorian Electra, Trapped on Cleveland 3 by Lil Keed, Mazel Offline by Z-Loopers, Dog by Khalil Blue, Ultra Club 4K by Doves, Innocent Country 2 by Quelle Chris, Anyways by Young Nudie, Kinjito by Riol, Lil Boat 3 by Lil Yachty, Dedicated Side B by Carly Rae Jepsen, Who Made the Sunshine by Westside Gunn, Attack of the Future Shocked Flesh-Covered Meatbags of the 85 by Silk Money, and finally Valley of Life by Z-Loopers. Let's jump into the actual list now at number 30, where we have Are You Sick of Being Unlucky by Vale Smith, a really adventurous and exciting electronic album. At number 29, I have The Slow Rush by Tame Impala, who gave us another collection of really fun and anthemic psychedelic rock songs. At 28, I have Heart Failure by Come and Have a Go. The vocals on this album are stunning, and overall it's just some really well-made pop music. 27 gives us Bright by Booty Chain and Black Cray, a really romantic and sparkly cloud rap mixtape. Conway the Machine earns his spot at 26 with a really fantastically written hip-hop album in the form of From King to a God. This thing has really deep storytelling, really hard, memorable quotables, and fantastic production all around. At 25, I have Origin of the Alimonies by Liturgy. This is a really interesting black metal album that brings in elements of classical music, jazz, and other fusions that end up creating a very distinct and mysterious atmosphere that I really love. At 24, we have Bad Kid from the Four by Doo-Wop Kane. Kane's approach to cloud rap and trap music is extremely unique and off-kilter, from his melodies to the way he uses auto-tune to his flows to his production, which he does himself and is very successful with. On some of his other projects this year, like Underdog 2, that creativity didn't necessarily translate to good music, but on Bad Kid from the Four, we have really amazing songs that are all pretty experimental and one of a kind. At 23, I have Sawayama by Rina Sawayama. Rina on this album blends elements from 4 different decades of pop music, giving us bits and pieces of all the music she grew up on, and the end result is a really satisfying and well put together package. At 22, I have Future with High Off Life. Over a decade into his career, Future is still coming through with some of the sharpest and most well-performed trap music out there. At 21, I have Ichiko Aoba with Windswept at Dawn. Ichiko brings her beautiful, gorgeous, graceful vocals to her most diversified and lush instrumental palette yet. Every one of her previous albums, at least of all the ones I've heard all of them except like one, the one with the white cover, they all have primarily acoustic backings. That's pretty much the only instrument she works with across all those records. You know, there's some field recordings thrown in here or there. It's not always the only element to her music, but for a solid 80-90% of her material, it's literally just her and an acoustic guitar, which has always worked out for her in the past, but hearing her over this more expansive orchestral instrumentation just brings the beauty of her music to a whole nother level. At number 20, the band Tennis brings us a really gorgeous and lovely dream pop album in the form of Swimmer. At 19, I have Lil Uzi with his long-awaited Eternal Atake, which for me, I think personally lived up to all the hype. Uzi on here is just brimming with character and color and personality. No, he's not bringing anything special on a lyrical level, but his performances from front to back are all really fantastic in my books. The production is some of the best he's ever gotten on. It just sounds so cosmic and spacey and celestial. And I know for some people, the whole, theme of him being kidnapped or whatever just feels a bit useless and tacked on, since it doesn't really tie into any of the lyrical themes on the album. But for me, I just think that's because there are no lyrical themes on the album. That's not really what you go to Lil Uzi for. And I kind of appreciated the whole, Martian kidnapping, alien abduction angle that he added to the album, because it just makes it feel to me like you're just traveling through a bunch of alien worlds when listening to these songs. Each track is a new planet that you're visiting, and just with how colorful it all feels, I just like the idea of Uzi taking us through all these different fun, sugar-coated trap worlds. At number 18, I have Alfredo by Freddie Gibbs and The Alchemist. All I really need to say about this project is that Alchemist brings amazing beats, and Freddie brings amazing verses. It's not much deeper than that. It's really just hip-hop at its finest. At number 17, I have How I'm Feeling Now, where Charlie XCX brings us her most personal album to date, while still bringing us that sugary hyperpop goodness status on a musical level. At 16, I appropriately have 16 Oceans by Fortet. This is one of the most immersive albums I've heard all year. Really gorgeous and rich sonic palette. Awesome micro house here. My number 15 is Purple Moonlight Pages by Rap Ferreira. Milo proved on here that this new stage of his career is one to be extremely excited for. This is some awesome jazz rap. I love a lot of the live instrumentation he brings on here. And also, I have to say, in my opinion, this is maybe some of the most humble music I've heard from Milo. I don't know. I really like the guy. I love all his music, but sometimes he just comes off a little bit condescending or pretentious. But I feel like on here, he just comes off the most human that he's ever came off. You know, songs like Laundry just have such a homey feel to them. And he also changed up how he raps on here to fit the jazzy instrumentation better than his old production, and it works extremely well for him. I love this new sound. I love this new phase of his career he's entering into, and I can't wait to hear more from him. At 14, I have Heaven to a Tortured Mind by Yves Tumor. This is an incredibly consistent art rock album. Nearly every song is just a fucking anthem that I can't get over. The guitar tones are so slick, so musically satisfying. This thing flows extremely well. We get a number of different vibes throughout the 12 tracks. It really is an incredible achievement from Yves, in my opinion, especially given how different this is from his previous projects. At 13, I have good old Open Mike Eagle with his project Anime, Trauma, and Divorce. This record deals with his life following his divorce, as the title would suggest, and it really just delves deeply into all the different facets of his life that have been affected by it. You know, not every song on this album is directly about the divorce or his relationship, but it just deals with the emotions that he was going through at that time, and the end result is a very beautiful and earnest journey that you take along with Mike as he tries to find a way to get back on his feet both emotionally and in his career. At number 11, I have A View of You, which is my favorite machine drum album to date. The drums across this album are so intricate and dense, and yet they remain very soulful and spiritual feeling. The synths are otherworldly, they're so beautiful textured, and they provide a really rich sonic palette. And the samples that he uses are all perfectly chosen and complement their given tracks so well. Starting off my top 10, I have Obscura by Shy. This was my favorite ambient project of 2020. It just has a magical, nostalgic feeling to it that whenever I put it on, it just brings me back to some of my happiest memories of childhood. It's such a serene, quaint, and peaceful album. This is such a great project to listen to while studying or going for a nice relaxing walk. If you're trying to keep your blood pressure low, your nerves calm, and your mind at ease, this is the perfect album for that. At number 9, I have Barnacles, the debut album from Saw Baby, one of my personal favorite up-and-coming trap artists. I was really looking forward to this project here because I thought Saw Baby was a rapper who had so much personality. His music is always loaded with hilarious metaphors and similes and quotables and just so much really entertaining and goofy wordplay that, yeah, you definitely have to be in a certain mood and you definitely have to have a certain sense of humor to really fully enjoy this project, at least as much as I do. But for those that this album will appeal to, I think you'll really dig it. And alongside the really unique and zany character that Saw Baby brings with this album, he's also just a really fantastic rapper in my opinion. His flows are on point, his melodic game is top-notch. Like I said, lyrically, he's giving you quotable after quotable. And production-wise, you have a selection of really fantastic, aquatic, and cloudy beats that paint the perfect ethereal world for Saw Baby to swim through like the squid that he claims to be. At 8, I have Shrines by Armand Hammer. If you're looking for a rap album that you can listen to 20 times and then still find an insane amount of new things in it the 20th time you hear it, this is the perfect album for that. It's one of the most lyrically dense albums I've heard all year. Billy and Elucid both absolutely kill it. As usual, you know, it's no surprise for either of them, but I'm still blown away every time I hear it because of just how good they are as rappers. And I know their style of more coded, hard to decipher lyrics isn't for everybody, but I personally just have so much fun just trying to pick out what exactly they're talking about on any given verse, because any of the subject matters they talk about, you know, after a few listens, it might become apparent what the concept or context content of a specific song is, but you know, the first few times you hear it, it might just sound like a bunch of gibberish, but I just love how slowly over more and more listens, how the puzzle pieces just, you know, connect in your brain and you get more of a full idea of what they're talking about. And then you just come to appreciate how incredible of songwriters they are to even come up with the shit that they write and to have it be as complexly and ambiguously worded as possible, and yet they still paint a very specific picture. It's just that, you know, you got to do some work as a listener to really come to see what that picture is. At number 7, I have Run the Jewels 4 by Run the Jewels. It looks like these guys are now 4 for 4, Killer Mike and LP, one of the best duos in hip-hop history. They've done it yet again with 11 fiery songs of some of the most potent and powerful political and social content that you'll hear nowadays in music. And it was also really nice to hear with this one that they're not getting stagnant on a musical level. You know, I was kind of worried that they just kind of fall into the same trap they did on Run the Jewels 3, which I love, by the way, but I did think on that album that musically they weren't bringing as many new ideas to the table. You know, a song like Thursday in the Danger Room or Oh Mama, those might have been a bit new sounding, but a lot of the album, like I said, it was really good, but it was starting to sound like a bit more of the same, at least on a musical level, because lyrically they were still bringing new stuff. But on this album, production-wise, they're also rapping on a lot of new sounding beats. I've never heard them make a track like Ooh La La or Out of Sight or Pulling the Pin, Just, and many others, so it was just really cool to see that they're still as engaging as ever on a rapping level while also still bringing fresh ideas to the table musically. At number 6, I have Almost There by one of my favorite rappers at the moment, Lucky. I'm sure not everyone will hear what I hear in him, but I just think he's one of the most special rappers out right now. Nobody is rapping like he is, in my opinion. His flows are so damn unique. His entire delivery, it's so subtle. Like, it's so fucking subtle that I can see people just thinking it's really lazy or dry sounding. But when you really like listen to his music as much as I do, you start tuning into how subtly he laces melodies throughout his verse, how subtly he'll employ different rhythms in his rapping. You know, at first it might just sound like, you know, kind of dry spoken, barely rapped mumbling, but just there's something extremely musical about the way that he does it, especially the more and more you listen to it, the more you try and rap along with it as well. That's always a big thing for me. I feel like I say that a lot, but honestly, if you really want to just see, you know, how good or how interesting someone is as a rapper, I feel like you really have to listen to their music a bunch and then start trying to rap and perform along with it, and then you really get to see the intricacies of what the artist is doing. And Lucky is just doing something that I haven't really, you know, heard anyone else do. The only comparison that I feel like I can draw is with Future, because Future is also someone who you might just hear a verse from him at first, think it's extremely simple, but then when you actually start like trying to sing along to it, you realize there's a lot of really subtle and complex shit that he's doing with his melodies that just make it a lot more interesting and engaging. So Lucky has a kind of similar thing there where it might sound more simple than it actually is on a surface level, but stylistically what he's actually doing isn't very similar to Future in my opinion. At this point in his career, he's much more cloud rap oriented than trap oriented, and he's also just a very different writer overall. And not only from Future, I honestly think that he just has this own unique style of writing that I haven't heard from anyone else in hip-hop right now. He just takes this really dark and depressed approach to his lyrics, but while still maintaining that typical confident feel that you'll get from a rapper, and it just makes it so where it's like he's almost making it hard to feel heartbreak, you know, hard to feel emotion, you know, all that stuff that's usually seen as, you know, softer in hip-hop. He's making it so it's like, yeah, like I'm fucking depressed and I'm a drug addict, but I don't give a fuck. I'm still living my life. I'm still doing me. This is just who I am. And not in a way where he's making light of those struggles or anything. You know, you definitely still do feel a lot of heaviness and pain in much of his music, but he just never seems to let that stuff fully get him down. You know, he always just rolls with the punches. He takes all this shit in his life and he just, you know, keeps plowing forward through it. So, you know, it just makes for some material that, yeah, it can be very emotionally resonant, and it can be the type of music that you'll play when you're depressed as well. And it's just, you know, pretty comforting to have that vibe on at the same time. But it's also, you know, a little empowering, that idea that even though you're experiencing these things, you don't have to let them always get you down, and you can still power through at the end of the day. And then he is also just constantly coming through with quotable after quotable. I just love the way he writes his lines as well. It's almost like a mix for me between like Future and Earl Sweatshirt. If you took both their lyrical styles and fused them, to me, that's what Lucky is, and it's just really unique. But also, like, like genuinely really smart and interestingly written music to me, so I'm just loving it overall. The production, which I didn't even talk about, I think is fantastic on this project as well. This is someone for me who I really believe could be one of the most interesting rappers over the next decade. Down to the top 5, starting things off with The Alchemist and Boldy James with The Price of Tea in China. Now, I've liked this album ever since it came out, always thought it was good, but up until maybe like December, this probably would have fell more around the middle of the pack for this list, but the whole month of December, like, I just could not stop playing this project. And now I'm at the point where I personally believe this is the best street rap project we've gotten since Pusha T's Daytona. The beats from Alchemist are honestly fucking unreal. You know, if you're a hip-hop fan, I don't know how you could hear these beats and not just be like, what the fuck, Alchemist, you are on some other shit, you are a fucking god. And overall, he actually crafts this really cold and mysterious nighttime vibe for the project, which is perfect for the content that we get on here from Boldy, which is just a harsh, realistic view of the drug dealing life. You do see glimpses of the typical cockiness and hard-nosed persona of most coke rappers, but also right from the opening track, Caruth, you see that a lot of this album is just gonna portray the sadness that comes with this lifestyle. This thing works perfectly as a front-to-back album. The flow of it and the transitions from song to song are all impeccably done. It just has that feeling to me of albums like Mad Villainy or Illmatic, that classic feeling for a hip-hop album where it's like, even though it's not a concept album overall, it just has that perfect front-to-back feeling. You know, it's a unique and distinct listening experience that feels like more than just a collection of songs. You know, it's a tried and true album that stands as more than the sum of its parts, and all the songs just boost each other to be even better than they already are when you take it in as a whole project. I don't know, I just really, really love this thing. And it's not even the highest Boldy James project on this list, but that's a little spoiler, so we'll get to that later. At number 4, I have Blade with 333. If you told me even like 2 years ago that I would ever have a Drain Gang project on one of my year-end lists, I would have thought you were nuts. But hey, it's called growing, it's called realizing that maybe you were wrong. And while I'm still not the biggest fan of Blade's older material, even a lot of that has grown on me, you know, especially Ice Dancer. I think that's a pretty great project. But even if his back catalog has grown on me quite a bit, in my opinion, this project here is still easily the best thing that he has done to date. The production on this album is just, I mean, I don't even know how to describe it without just throwing out all my typical buzzwords. You know, it's so immersive, it's so sonically rich and lush. You know, he's bringing us all these different beautifully vivid and colorful worlds, making this whole album just feel like such an adventure from start to finish. But really, there's just something about the music on this album that feels so more meticulously crafted than any of his other projects. You know, like I said, I do like much of his older music now, but still a lot of the beats just have a very traditional cloud rap feel to them, whereas on here, it just seems so much more magical and fluid, and it just doesn't have that same, you know, rigidness or stiffness, I guess, of your typical hip-hop beat that just feels like, you know, one loop over and over again. There's just more of a human quality to this one. You know, a lot of Blade's music does sound very robotic, and that is the point of it, but this one here just feels so much more natural and soulful, and I really think that just works out extremely well for Blade on this one, especially given that he also delivers his most dynamic and impassioned vocal performances to date. To me, it just sounds like he's really stepping out of his comfort zone when it comes to the melodies he's using, when it comes to the inflections he uses to deliver his vocals, when it comes to some of the flows that he uses on here. And, you know, I don't think it's something that I just thought at first, but then going back and listening to his older music, it's like, oh, he's always been like this. No, like, even after going back to his back catalog and seeing how much that stuff grew on me, like I said, you know, already a few times, yes, much of it grew on me, but it definitely has a different appeal from this new one here. Like, even if I like some of those projects now, it's for different reasons than why I think this one is as great as it is. A lot of these songs are ones that I just personally feel like I'm ascending during. I mean, Hero of My Story, Only One, Wings in Motion, Hundreds, Mean Girls, Reality Surf. Like, damn, nearly every song on this project is just pure perfection. There's maybe one or two that I don't think are quite up to snuff that I would personally cut to make this, you know, just a more tight project, but I'm really not complaining. There's not a single bad track on here. I at least like every song. It's just, you know, if it wanted to be maybe my favorite album of the year instead of my 4th favorite album of the year, I guess he could have taken a couple songs off, but that's not really important. Overall, I still think this is a fantastic record and probably my favorite Drain Gang project to date. At number 3, I have Charmed by DJ Sabrina the Teenage DJ. A lot of people who go to check out this album might see that it's 3 hours long and be scared away from it, which is definitely fair. You know, not everyone just has time to sit down and listen to a 3-hour project, but I just personally highly implore you to not let that stop you from hearing this project. You know, even if you have to hear it in 4 different sittings, 3 different sittings, you know, however much, I just really do think it's worth it to hear the material on here. You know, I'm not the most experienced house listener in the world. You know, I've definitely heard a few dozen house records in my lifetime, but I haven't heard hundreds or anything like that. There's definitely lots of people out there, Buffalo Staple, The Wonky Angle, The Sound Binge, and many other reviewers who would be better versed in electronic music and house music than I am. But, you know, whether I'm the biggest expert in the world on house music or not, I can say that personally, this is my favorite house record that I have ever heard. Even though this thing is 31 tracks long, there's like not an ounce of filler on this thing for me. That's the other thing. If you don't want to check out this thing as a whole, literally click on any fucking track and just hear for yourself just how upbeat and euphoric and lively and life-affirming this album is. Every song is just a fucking orgasm of blissful and bright sounds being thrown together in the most danceable way possible. This album will have you dancing for 3 hours straight. In my case, it literally did. And I have proof of that you may be seeing on DJ Sabrina's channel sometime soon. So keep an eye out for that if you want to. And if anyone thinks, oh, you're collaborating with her, so you must know her well, and that's why you're putting her album this high on your list. No, I don't know her at all. I just love this album so much that I reached out to her and asked her if I could make a video of myself dancing to the entire album, and if she would want to post that on her channel. She said yes, so you know, that could be coming soon if she likes what I send her. I just sent her the video earlier today, but anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. I'm just gonna go back to the list now. So yeah, we're at my number 2 pick, but here's the thing. My number 2 and my number 1, I spent a lot of time trying to decide which album would be at which spot, because I knew my top 2 favorite albums of the year. I've known for a while, but I really just have had a hard time deciding which to put at which place. And I've listened to them both, you know, a lot over the last few weeks, you know, just naturally because I love them so much, but also trying to figure out which one I liked better. And every time I'd put on one album, I'd be like, okay, I think this is definitely the one. Like, I can't like another album more than this. But then I'd play the other one and I'd be like, okay, well, actually, maybe it's this one. Like, this is fucking amazing. Like, this has to be my favorite album of the year, right? And then I go back to the other one and I think the same thing, and I just keep going back and forth. And it's just like, whenever I'd listen to one of the albums, that would be my favorite. And so then when I wasn't listening to either of them and I was just like thinking of which one I would like more, I would just be so confused because I do not know. So I've never done this before. This is not something that I wanted to do. This is not something I even like doing, because I do feel like it's a cop-out. You know, anyone who thinks that, I get it. This is a cheap move, but I'm gonna have to do it, because otherwise I'm gonna spend the next like month just trying to decide which one of these is my favorite before making this video, and I didn't want to have to stall the entire video just because of how indecisive I am. So I'm not gonna have a number 2 and a number 1. I'm just gonna say I have 2 albums of the year this year that maybe, you know, in 6 months or 2 years, one of them will be my clear favorite. For now, they're just interchangeable at these top 2 spots. Just my 2 favorite albums of the year. Those would be Whole Lotta Red by Playboi Carti and Manger on McNichols by Boldy James and Sterling Tolles. Now, Whole Lotta Red I've talked about in 2 of my last 3 videos. I did a reaction and a full review of it, so I'm not gonna sit here and talk about it for any longer. So you guys can just go watch either of those videos if you haven't already to see my full thoughts on it. But yeah, I still am loving this project just as much as I was in both those videos. I think it's amazing, super experimental, super adventurous, highly enjoyable, very creative, amazing project. And Manger on McNichols I did already talk about a little bit in my Griselda ranking for this year, but I'll just repeat that this is a pretty stunning jazz rap album that to me feels like a very unique blend of jazz rap and gangster rap that I haven't heard before. But even the specific jazz influences that we get on this project are very varied. It's not just the same sound all throughout. There's a lot of really creative tricks that we hear in a lot of these songs. I love that vocal sample on Detroit River Rock, the G-Funk West Coast feel of Birth of Boldy, the bagpipes we get on Mommy Dearest. I mean, there is a wide variety of sounds that we're getting on here, and the end result is something that is totally distinct. Another project like Whole Lotta Red that I can't compare to anything I've heard. 2 extremely unique musical experiences that just have me captivated from start to finish. Both of these albums already already hold very special places in my heart, and I am proud to say that they are my 2 favorite albums of 2020. So those were my 30 favorite albums of 2020. If there was any albums that you guys love and I left off, don't take it too personally. This is just my personal list, and you guys can always tell me what your favorite albums of the year were down in the comments below. Thank you guys, as always, for watching, and I'll see you next time.